bunnies, and welcome back to Woodland Bunny, a cozy space to talk about books. So we are doing our June wrap up today. Here are the stats on the screen for the books that I read in the month of June. So let's begin as always with the lowest rated to the highest rated. There are no particular order in their category, in their respective areas of rating, I should say. And if you don't know, I don't do a typical 1 to 5 star rating. I do my own sort of system, in which I'll leave down below in the description what that is in case you were wondering. So I had no personally not for me books, which is great because that is my lowest kind of tier in my rating system. Then next up we have the mediocre, and I had a handful of books in my mediocre rating. First of all, it begins with Alive and Wells and had themes of abusive relationship, healing from trauma and finding self-worth, love and trust again, found family, small town, cowboys and grieving. And I found this one a delight to read, even with all of this impactful stuff woven into it. I was very much on a cowboy romance kick in June, and so this was one of those that I kind of read, and this one still sticks out to me till this day because I just felt so connected to our main film protagonist, so connected to the characters, so connected to everyone on the ranch, and I was really rooting for our romance and rooting for the characters, and I felt like it had quite a unique plot line, I suppose. I haven't really read too many books that follow this kind of abusive relationship and escaping that, and then having that cowboy romance in that as well. So that was a lot of fun to read. And yeah, despite all of these kind of traumas and different explorations that the characters were going on about themselves, about learning to trust again, I still found it really wholesome and really lovable, and yeah, I do recommend this one. But we have The Honey Witch, in which I was sadly disappointed with. This had themes of witches and magic. It was queer, family, honey being source of magic, and other evil witch trying to destroy the world. I read this one when I was stuck in the airport for about 5 hours, and I really did hope that that hasn't tinted how I was feeling about this book, because I was feeling quite restless. But after revisiting this book, even when I got home, I still felt kind of bitterly disappointed. I was just expecting a little bit more from this book, and it read really, really young. I don't think this is YA, but it really read young and almost middle grade, and it kind of felt like it was having all of these really important themes, and it was really fun, and it was a really amazing kind of comical premise. This book had so much potential, and it just didn't deliver for me, and I don't know if that's again because I feel like it read really young, and so that felt disconnected to the characters and the story. But yeah, sadly this one didn't really do it for me, but if those themes sound interesting to you, then I still recommend it. Then we have another one which I read, in which sadly I was let down by again, but kind of wasn't really expecting too much from it either, and that is Hard Copy. This had themes of translated Dutch fiction, obsession with the printer, introverted and socially awkward narrator, stream of consciousness, and no plot or vibes, but not many vibes either. And I feel as though that last theme kind of encapsulates this whole book. It was supposed to be one of these all plot no plot or vibes, but it didn't really feel like it pulled on the vibes section either, and I feel as though I was just waiting this whole book for something to happen and something more to be done, but it just kind of fell a bit flat. And yeah, there was just this kind of disconnect between me and the book, and which ultimately made it land in my mediocre. Next up we have Butter, in which I read when I was reading my translated Asian fiction, and this one has had all of the hype recently and has been absolutely everywhere. Went to London recently, and every single bookshop I walked into there was Butter forefront, so very glad I read it. However, it did land in my mediocre tier, and the themes that I wrote down for this one were femininity, gender roles, obsession, food, flavour and cooking, and relationships with people, that being platonic, family and romance. I feel as though this book did really great at exploring characters and also the idea of food and what those things mean to one another and what those things can mean to you. Apart from that, I again didn't really love this book. I found it to be a bit of a slog. I found as though it was going on for quite a while. We weren't really getting anywhere. I feel as though it was the kind of plot of this was driving the book and driving the timeline, but because it just felt so slow and monotonous, it kind of just left me feeling a bit like having to pick up this book again. But those themes were fun to read about, and like I said, I really enjoyed like understanding the people element and then the food element, and it did make me quite hungry while reading it. But yeah, sadly just wasn't the best book in my personal opinion. Next up, we have The Fake Mate, in which this had themes of workplace/fake relationship agreement, a werewolf and human world, the love interests of both werewolves, grumpy sunshine, cringeworthy moments, a lot of steamy scenes, and mentions of werewolves continuously, and I mean continuously. And I feel a little slightly traumatized by the steamy scenes in this book, I cannot lie. I feel as though when I was reading them, I was kind of closing my eyes while doing so. I just felt this one was really hard to digest, and yeah, I just didn't really love it, didn't really gel with it, hence why it's in the mediocre category. It was so fun, light-hearted, and had really fun scenes in there of being grumpy sunshine and being this fake relationship, and I did like the love interest outside of them being werewolves, but I think the whole point was that they were werewolves, so that obviously plays a really big part. And the final book I have to discuss in my mediocre tier is The Neighbour Favour. This had themes of familial relationship, both toxic and positive, misunderstanding of who each other thought that they were, book-centred, and one of our characters is an author and one of our characters is working in the publishing industry, and then cringeworthy moments and immediately knowing what the conflict is going to be. I feel as though I see this quite often, and I can never really get around my point as to what I mean, but I feel like a lot of romances are very, very similar in the way that they go. I feel as though there's only one direction you can really go with a romance, and I kind of refer to this blueprint all the time, as though all romances tend to have this blueprint of, we have characters in X situation, they end up going about their lives, introducing into each other's lives, there's a conflict, there's a resolution, there's a happy ending. And I feel as though a lot of those romance books encapsulate that blueprint, and I'm not just saying this whatsoever because I love reading romance. I love reading that blueprint, and I love knowing what I'm expecting out of a romance and in a book, but sometimes when I'm on the second page and I can already predict the conflict, I kind of do feel a little bit let down, and you're kind of waiting to be proved wrong that the author is going to spin something. But at the same time, I was quite comforted by the fact that they didn't. So it was kind of a awkward situation to be in, because on one hand I was really wanting to be proved wrong that most romances don't follow this blueprint, but at the same time I was wanting to be proved right because of just craving that comfort of a romance and its predictability, I guess. So yeah, again, it's in my mediocre tier because I feel as though, because I was able to predict that conflict, it did feel a bit flat when it happened and I wasn't really that into it. But apart from that, I really, really love this romance, and I think it's one of my favourites, I think. But yeah, still I do recommend it. Then moving on to my good tier, we have Rouge, and this had themes of it being a skin cult, underlying themes of obsession with beauty, destruction of self, unhinged characters, fever dream, fairy tales, and grieving. This one felt like a fever dream, and I really want to pick up Bunny by Mona Awad after reading this, because the writing in this book was fantastic. The scene setting, I can still, when I think of it now, remember scenes and how they made me feel and what I was imagining while reading them, and the different predicaments our character got themselves into, and just the weirdness of this book and how you just never knew what direction it was going in. And so yes, I do definitely recommend this one. We have Death of a Bookseller. This had themes of being serial killers, two POVs, obsession and stalking, dark subject matters and graphic discussions, and unlikable characters. The theme of serial killers is our characters aren't serial killers themselves. There is just one of our characters who has an obsession with serial killers, and then our other character who has been impacted by serial killers. So yeah, when I say the theme of serial killers, it's not that our main characters are serial killers inherently. But yeah, this one was really, really fun. I had fun with the themes, had fun with the characters, loved the fact they're unlikable, loved the fact that they're so contradictory and different, and I couldn't ever put my finger on what was going to happen with them. And yeah, again, even now, similar to Rouge, I can think of different moments in which I was thinking about it and enjoying it, and it did fly by. I found that this read was really, really fast paced, and I had fun while reading it. Then we have Convenient Storewoman, in which this had themes of being a translated Japanese fiction, short, quick read, social commentary and social norms, comfort in life and mundanity, and questioning normal. Again, this one was really short, really fast paced, really impactful in terms of just what I have come to love about Japanese literature, in which it's just almost social studies and personal studies on different humans, how they lead their lives, questioning what normality is, questioning how different humans interact with the world, etc., etc. And thought this was just phenomenal and great and easy, and just really likable, and I had fun while exploring this novel. And yeah, that's something in which Japanese literature and Asian translated fiction is slowly becoming one of my top favourite genres, or subgenres I suppose. I'm just obsessed with that kind of subject matter, and all of them seem to encapsulate that in some form. So yes, I did enjoy that one and I recommend it. I have the Bunnies book club pick for the month of May and June, which is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. This had themes of friendship, growing up in situations you have to deal with, love and loss, multi-timelines and non-linear timelines, and disability representation. So I feel as though I did not do that theme list justice with just how much this book encapsulated. I was slightly let down by this book in the sense of I did find it really hard to connect with the characters, and I've had a few discussions with other people who have said the polar opposite to me, and said that their unlikability and the pretentious prose is what made them connect with the characters more, and I feel as though I cannot stand here and do this book justice with just how much it encapsulated and how impactful it was. I feel as though if I wasn't so disconnected with either the writing style or the characters, I still haven't put my finger on which one it actually is, then I would have adored this book, and I do highly recommend reading it, just for the experience alone, because yeah, I thought it was great. I did think it was great, but I was just slightly let down by it. The final book in my good tier is The Bookshop Woman, which had themes of studies on individuals for books and recommending them, strange interactions, learning about yourself and others and how complex / individual humans are, meeting strangers and recommending them books. So our main character kind of goes on speed dates with other people, and she ends the night by recommending someone a book, and it's kind of just these interactions with all of these different people that she meets along the way, discussions on herself, growing as a person, and again, very much like I said before, just with the other Japanese literature, translated fiction books that I've been reading, it's just very much focused on humans and all of that encapsulates and how vast humanity is. And I again really like this, especially because it had the main focus of books being at the forefront of it. Made me love the idea of recommending books, love the idea of talking about books even more than I already do, and yeah, I do recommend this one. It was short, it was great, it was fast, and yeah, had a really fun subject matter. Then we go into my final tier, which is the great tier, starting off with funny story. This had themes of childhood trauma, becoming an individual, forced proximity, friends to lovers and roommates, real characters with mundane lives, love in its true real form, and raw. I feel as though this was the most raw, true romance book that I have picked up and read, and I just fell head over heels for this writing, this character, these characters, this setting, all of their traumas, all of their trials, their tribulations, everything this book encapsulates. I loved. I sped through it. I cannot communicate how much I really enjoyed this book, and it's definitely one of my favourite books of all time. So much fun with it, and I highly recommend it. This is definitely my favourite Emily Henry by far, one of my favourite romance books, and yeah, if those themes sound interesting to you, then pick this book up. I have The Kamigawa Food Detectives, in which started my love and admiration for what I think is going to be a never-ending translated fiction subgenre type thing love, in which this had themes of nostalgia with food, Japanese translation, comforting, food descriptions in detail and mouth-watering, and human character studies. Again with the human character studies, again with food and being nostalgic. Oh, this book, I read it so fast, and I was just wanting to taste all of the meals in this. I loved the beautiful writing style, how it all leaped back into one another, how many themes were in this, how many different genres it kind of spun on. I thought it was fantastically done and just so perfectly curated, and I definitely highly recommend it. Final book I have to talk to you about today is Days in the Marizaki Bookshop, in which this had themes of finding yourself and family, complexities of life and relationships, small town, mundane days, used bookshore town, which reminds me of ᴍᴘᴇᴱ, and love for books. If you don't know, ᴍᴘᴇᴱ is a town in Wales in which has basically every single book genre you can think of. It has a bookshop for it, and it's fantastic. I visited it about 2 years ago now and have just been thinking about it ever since, and this book is the closest thing I've seen in literature that resembles it, and I just the setting, the characters, the writing style, the themes encapsulated in this book are all fantastic. I ate them up, loved them so much, and it's so short, and I think there is a second installment or a second book coming out very soon for this book, in which I'm really wanting to get my hands on. And yes, I do recommend this book so very much if they seem to sound interesting to you. I personally loved it. My friends, those are all of the books in which I read in the month of June. Thank you ever so much for being here. I love to know what books you delved into in the month of June, your thoughts, your favourite ones, and any recommendations you may have. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you have a wonderful day or night. Until next time, bye!